Well, hello and welcome to the WeWealth Women podcast. It is your host, Athena, CPA and founder of WeWealth Women, where we help women live their best wealthy goddess life. So today I'm super excited. We have a wonderful guest. So today's guest is a radiant force in the world of women's empowerment, performance, and prosperity. Brandi Hudson is a performance coach, happiness expert, and dynamic speaker with nearly 2 decades of experience in corporate leadership. She now helps high achieving women, so basically the listeners of this podcast, especially those navigating entrepreneurship and venture backed spaces, unlock their full potential and cultivate lasting happiness and success. Brandi's also the creator of the BASE method, an approach that centers on belief, alignment, self-awareness, and emotional resilience. She blends intuitive insight with real-world strategy to help women shift their energy, rewriting limiting money stories, and align with abundance from the quantum field. I love it. She's been featured in over 20 podcasts and brings a powerful blend of spiritual and practical wisdom. And whether or not she's guiding women through wealth mindset breakthroughs or helping them step fully into their magic, Brandi's mission is clear: to help women build a life of legacy, wealth, joy, and freedom. So please welcome the incredible Brandi Hudson. Yay!
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you, Athena.
I'm so excited to have Brandi on, looking gorgeous and lovely. I was just commenting and praising Brandi before the show that I love her braids.
Thank you.
No, all right, so we're going to play the popular game that we have all our hosts, our guests recently playing, which is a this or that game, where we'll be giving them two options.
Okay.
And they have to pick which one they prefer. It's great to break the ice and also to get to know them on a more personal level. So the first question I have for you, Brandi, is: are you high vibe journaling or walking meditations girl?
High vibe journaling.
High vibe journaling. Why journaling?
Well, I just like to clear my head in the morning. And so I like to do kind of the Julia Cameron method of morning pages, where I just get everything out of my head, and it lets me then to focus in on my intentions instead of like ruminating on things. But I also live right by a national park, and I love to take a long meditative walk. But my first step in the morning, journaling.
I live by a huge park as well, and I walk almost every morning. I feel like the nature, like smelling the grass, seeing the bunnies, seeing the people canoeing. I just feel like it's almost like me communing. I always say it's like I'm communing with God when I'm like out in nature.
You definitely
So
are.
that helps me. But I feel like I need to pick up journaling more because I have all this stuff swimming in my head, and I feel like I need to just put it down on paper.
Yeah, I love that. All the work is to quiet our mind, but I'm with you about nature. Nature reminds us of all the abundance that is available to us, right? Because when we're out in nature, it's like there's 8 million different shades of green and there's a million different leaves. And you're like, okay, why am I in this scarcity mindset when there's just so much abundance in the world?
Exactly. And we are all about abundance over here, honey. That's the whole point. So, question
Okay,
number 2:
let's go.
vision boards or spreadsheets?
Oh, can I go with neither?
Okay, what's the alternative?
Well, this is so interesting. Spreadsheets. I mean, I guess I'm more of a spreadsheet girl if I have to pick one. But I mean, I'm equal to both. I'm sorry, this isn't a very satisfying answer, but I moved away from vision boards. I'm fine with them, and I think they are helpful, but it's just I'm not in that stage of my life. And and I don't necessarily follow spreadsheets because I'm really like intuitively focused. I'm like, okay, the next thing, it drops into my head. Like every morning I just ask God, like, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? And that's how I build out my day. And I just go from there.
I love that. I love you said intuitively focused. Like I'm writing that down. I'm intuitively focused.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So question number 3:
All right.
corporate boardroom or spiritual retreat, Brandi?
Oh, definitely spiritual retreat. Yeah. I definitely have done my fair share of both. I was an executive for many, many years and ran large teams. And so I can feel at home in anybody's boardroom. I've been to many of them, but I'm at the season of my life where spiritual retreats really
Yes.
fill me up.
I love a good spiritual retreat. I love a good spiritual retreat. I was at Tulum the other day and I was just like, oh, for my birthday, I was like, oh, I could just stay here. We went to cenotes and the beaches and the highly organic food. You could taste like, I'm like, this is not processed. Like, this is so delicious. Like,
I love that. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
Okay. Morning affirmations or nighttime visualizations?
Nighttime visualization.
Nighttime. See, at nighttime, I'm too tired. Like, I try to. I got this like journal app I'm trying to like use, but at least I can like speak into it versus having to sit and write. But I'm like, sometimes I'm in the bed, I just fall asleep. That's why I was like, I have to do all my stuff in the morning.
I like that. But if you just put one beautiful thought in your head right before you go to bed, your chances of manifesting it, co-creating it in your life are going to increase exponentially. It doesn't have to be like a process, but like right when we move into that dream state, that is like a beautiful time of co-creation.
All right, I'm gonna do that. Just one thought. Just one thought.
Just one little thing. Yeah. Visualize, set an intention, something for your future.
Listen, we're getting all the gems from Brandi today. Okay, one thought, ladies. One thought. Last question, but certainly not the least. Manifestation or momentum?
Oh, I mean, I think I need a clarity on the question. What do you mean by momentum?
Like, I'm guessing momentum as like movement or progress on something, right? Like it's picking up momentum, like putting energy, expelling energy towards something. That's what you're saying.
Like action, like taking action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I am going to give another mixed answer. You're like, girl, this is either or. But however, right, like I believe, and we can talk about this more in depth, that like the entirety of our life we're co-creating. So I don't love the word manifestation because it makes people think that they're just like creating one thing. So I believe that I'm creating the entirety of my life, both the good and the bad. So I'm constantly manifesting. And I believe in taking inspired action. So like the way that we get momentum to creating a life that is more aligned with what we want versus what we don't want is to know that we are the creator of the entirety of it, and then to take inspired action. So this last question, I'm going with both.
Okay. See, Brandi said, you know what? I'm so abundant I can have both. I don't have to choose.
I didn't say that, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna put
You're
that
taking it.
Yeah. Yes, I meant it though. I meant it.
You meant it. You meant it.
I meant it.
Okay. So all right. So thank you for participating in this or that. I felt like all right, we're good with the vibes. We kind of know who, kind of some insight on how Brandi likes to flow. So first question I have for you, Brandi, it's going to be about more spiritual wisdom meets business savvy, because I think you do a good job of blending the two. You blend spiritual insight with corporate know-how. How do you balance the mystical with the strategic? And what inspired you to do so?
Yeah, I love that. I'll start with the second part of the question first. As I noted in the this or that portion, I had this really amazing corporate career, right? Where I had a lot of success. I led teams of hundreds of humans and was responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars. And I was a sales leader, and most time in sales, people think that sales is very cyclical. Like you have a great year and then you may not have such a good year, and that there's these ups and downs. And I had managed in my life to really have very consistent success. Like always, whether I was an individual contributor or leading, teams of hundreds of humans, I always finished in the top 5 to 15% if I wasn't number one. And I was like, well, how did I do this? Right. Like I really took a step back and was like, okay, like this is like pretty impressive. if I do say so myself. And I wanted to understand like what had gotten me there. And I think that's when I realized that it was this like ability to really direct my thoughts in a way and my emotions in a way that just created this life where I didn't believe that I had to have a cyclical experience, where I just like anytime I got into a situation, I really was in this space of like my success is inevitable. And then I just like from there, like tactically figured out what I needed to do. Right. And when our brains are in this place, when we're in this mystic space of knowing, right? Like this place of faith of knowing that our outcome is already there, then our aperture opens and the like
I love
ability to
that.
see possibility and opportunity is unending, and you find a way, right? And then when you are in that opposite energy, you unfortunately see many, many, many roadblocks.
Listen, so much gems. And I think also challenging. I think what's challenging in life is that when we grow up, we have these templates, and which are these the beliefs. And even like you were saying in sales, there's this belief in sales that the sales is going to be inconsistent or cyclical, or you're not going to be able to maintain. But you basically said you didn't really ascribe to that belief. So since you didn't ascribe to that belief, you were able to flourish and figure out a way to remain consistent. So with that being said, how important are beliefs to achieving our goals while also living our best lives? Like how
Yeah.
important?
I mean, I will not be able to state just how important they are. There are no words that are big enough to state like how important our beliefs are. It's my framework base. The first letter is B, and that's all about our beliefs. I wrote a Substack that published yesterday about our beliefs. Like I think that people underestimate the things that they are saying and how it is directing their lives. Like this morning, I'm going to like overhaul my branding. So this morning I was talking to a woman about helping to lead my branding. And she was like, well, I don't like extremely wealthy clients because they're so difficult to work with. And I'm like, that is a terrible belief to have.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it's not true. Right? Like people who are difficult can be wealthy, they can be poor, they can be middle class. Like there is no one has a lock on being difficult, right? And so our beliefs like are going to completely shape the experience of our world. So like if you were raised to think like more money, more problems, or you were raised to think that wealthy people aren't always kind, or if you were raised to think money doesn't grow on trees, or I was raised to think that the more money I make, the more money I'll spend, like all of these things. Or like if we shifted to relationships, if you're raised to believe that there's not enough men in the world for successful women, all of these things aren't in service to your own good. And what will happen is you will make it true, and then you'll convince yourself that you believe it because it's true. So you'll start to be in a space where like the more money you make, the more money you spend, and you're like, see, my belief is true. But it's only true because you made it so, not because it's universally true. And I urge people to ask people outside of your friend group, because you're probably attracting people that are like you. Ask people outside of your friend group. You can email me, you can call me, and say like, do you believe it's true? And if everyone doesn't believe it's true, then it's not. It's just something you have chosen to believe, right? So the things that are true is the sky is blue. The thing that is true is there are about 8 billion people in the world. Those are facts, right? And most everything else, like that isn't just like really a fact, are just beliefs that we've created. And we want to use your word, we want to ascribe to beliefs that are in service to our greatest good.
Yes, exactly. And I think belief is that foundation and that base, because then it's going to determine your thoughts, and then it's going to determine what you actually do. So what you're believing, I mean, it's so interesting. I'm in all these different women's groups, and the conversation of dating is just like rapid, and I don't think you can be in a women's group and the subject of a man doesn't ever come up. I don't even think that's even physically possible. But I will sit and listen to everyone's belief around dating, and it's so funny because some of the stuff I'm like, that's not true or has not been true, and like in my experience. So if it's not a fact, like you said, like if the sky is blue, then it truly is just a belief. Now, your belief can be constantly being reinforced through actions or like playing back out. But, like you said, if it's not like an actual fact, then, maybe just changing your belief around it will help change what you're getting.
Yeah, not maybe, for sure it will.
Will, for sure.
We
Right.
need
Right.
to tell,
Right.
and I think the beauty of seeing that your beliefs are manifest in the world is that it reminds you of how powerful you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if we can harness our power to actually align with what we're seeking, then we're going to really build this great, big, beautiful life. But if we're in this space of like thinking that men, there aren't enough, they aren't educated enough, they're dogs, they're this, they're that, like all of these kind of tropes that are out there, then we draw that to us, right? Like when I wanted to get married, I realized like, oh, I focused a lot on my career and I have this great, big, beautiful career. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to focus on finding a husband. And I just said like, these are the 3 things that I want in a husband. And I named 3 things. And then I like set an intention. I was like, when I date someone, the minute I know that he's not my husband, I'm going to stop dating him. But I never made it about them. Like there aren't men, right? I knew my guy was out there. And when I moved to San Francisco, I actually had many, many friends because I left Atlanta tell me, you will never get married. There are not enough Black men in San Francisco. This is not going to work for you. And I moved here. And a month later, I met my husband and we've been married for 10 years. And so you just have to be clear on what you want out of the world, crystal clear. You only need one man. There's 8 billion people in the world. You cannot believe that you have a desire to be married and that there isn't someone for you. You cannot believe that you want to build a business and that you're a really smart person and that you can't do it. You cannot believe that you want to lose weight and there's a million different things out here that will partner with you to lose it and you can't figure it out. So we have to know that if we have a desire in our head, there is a path to achieving it. But the first path is just to believe it.
Listen, so powerful and so true. So powerful and so true. I think when I look at the things that have manifested in my life, I manifested it because I didn't feel like I didn't have anything blocking my belief that it could happen. Mm-hmm. And however it showed up, sometimes it didn't show up right away. Sometimes I wish it would. Sometimes I wish it would be like a McDonald's drive-thru where I just gave the order and then I just pull around and just get it really quickly. But it eventually did. So, that whole divine timing thing is so crucial in that as well. And just trusting that it will show up. Yeah. I also want to talk to you, Brandi. So I know we talked about abundance earlier and just having that abundant mindset, which I love because people would ask me, it's funny playing the this or that game because people would ask me, give me options. I'm like, why do I have to choose? Like my response was like, why can't I just have it all? And that's like my default response. But especially with what's going on right now, from an economic standpoint, when I have these conversations, especially with women, I gave a financial presentation to women the other day, and they're just very concerned, financially with the economic environment, all these layoffs and everything. Can you share a spiritual practice that has made a tangible difference in your financial life that the women can use?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll share a specific practice. I'd like to first maybe speak to this time in our history. I think what we want to remind ourselves is that in these times in our history, there actually end up being some of the greatest times of wealth creation. And that this is a time where we can choose to participate in that wealth creation. And it is really not possible to participate in it if you are in a constant state of worry. Because what worry does for us is it shifts us into this state of fight or flight. And in a state of fight or flight, the only thing we can do is survive. We cannot thrive, right? And so to take it back to the first part of your question, some things that we can do are really to calm our nervous system, right? So that we can participate in what's available to us, right? Like, if you believe in something greater than yourself, then you know that there is no one else in this world that can constrain what's for you, right? And so we want to be in this beautiful place of like having a calm nervous system, right? It isn't actually about being employed, it's about being employable. If you are really good at what you do, there's always space for you in the world. And the thing that you do, I don't know it specifically but what I do know is no one else can do the thing that you're doing. We are all these unique beings, and there is no other version of you. There are a million coaches, and not one of them is like me. Not one of them.
Exactly.
And I'm not like any of them. And I don't aspire to be, nor do they aspire to be like me. I think that when we really sit in our own genius, then we know that there's a space for us. And so 3 things that I offer to people, like when they feel as though they're spending more of their time in those dense emotions, right? Fear, worry, anger, shame, anxiety, right? Like when you're spending the majority of your time in those emotions, you want to do 3 things. So one we already talked about, we want to, and all 3 of these things, let me pause, are in service to quieting your mind. Because what happens, right? The average human thinks about 70,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot of thoughts, right? Because we're sleeping 6 to 12 hours of the day, right? So you're thinking 70,000 thoughts per day. 90% of those thoughts are repetitive. So you're thinking about the same handful of things over and over and over again. And then, unfortunately, 80% of those thoughts are negative. So you're thinking about these like worst case scenarios, right? And what you're doing is you're paving neural pathways in your brain and actually like making it more likely that these things that you're thinking about actually come to pass. So we want to really quiet our brains for a couple reasons. One, so that we're not always thinking negative things, but 2, also so that we can hear whatever you want to call it. You can call it your intuition, so you can hear the voice of God, so that you can hear source, so you can really be guided, right? You can't be guided if your brain is full of clutter. Okay. So that's the why and the what. And so this is the how. 3 things, they're free. Don't have to pay anyone for them. One, we want to have a meditative practice, right? And so many people, when I'm like, oh, you really should meditate, the first thing they say to me is like, it's so hard to meditate. It's so hard to meditate. So here's my gem of the day. The point of meditation is not to get good at meditation. It's to get good at life. So you never have to be good at meditation. You never have to be good at it. That's not the goal. It's to quiet your mind. It's to be good at life. So just sit for 5 minutes, and then the next day for 5 minutes again, and the next day for 5 minutes. And at some point, increase it to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And eventually you'll be really good at it. And you won't even know when you turn the corner. You just will be, right? But you have to be consistent and disciplined. The next is the morning pages, which I already talked about. Just do a data dump in the morning. Stream of consciousness on a piece of paper, just whatever is in your head, write it down exactly as you're thinking it. Don't even read it back. Just get it out of your head. And then 3rd, we want to have a beautiful gratitude practice, right? Like if after this podcast, I didn't send you an email and say, Athena, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. You'd be like, I'm never going to invite that girl back. And that's a little bit how life is. If we aren't saying thank you for the good things that show up in our lives, like in a real heartfelt, genuine way, then life doesn't know what to continue to serve you. And so we want to be really, really good about having a gratitude practice. And if you do those 3 things, you'll get through and weather any storm. I promise you.
I love that. And one of the things I do in the morning is I say, when I wake up, I'm like, okay, what are 3 things I'm grateful for that I have? And then I go to the park and do my morning walk and all that other stuff. And I feel like I notice a difference when I go about my days that way versus if I just get up and just just start doing
Jump
just
right
start
in. Yep.
doing. I feel like it just centers. So gratitude always, even for the little things. Um,
Especially for the little things.
especially for
Because
the
the
little
little things are actually what makes a life, right? Like the big, like it's easy to be like, I got a new house. Oh my God, my boyfriend's amazing. Oh my gosh, I had dinner at the fanciest restaurant in town. But that doesn't make a life. You can't do that all the time. You can't get a house, a boyfriend, a car every day. But the little things are the culmination, are really what make a life. And so when you lean into gratitude, like I found a parking space. Like, how great would your life be if every single day you got the best parking space? How great would your life be if there was never a line anytime you went to the store, right? Like that would actually like put your life on hyperdrive. And so those are the things where you really want to be more, have a greater awareness of how grateful you are to those things.
I agree 1000%. 1000%. I want to touch on something that a lot of, especially high achieving women, that's a lot of women I work with. I'm sure there's a lot of women you work with that have the feeling of, they feel, or maybe on paper, their life looks so amazing, but it's not really doing anything for them. So, like, what advice would you give a high achieving woman who feels successful on paper but unfulfilled inside?
Oh my gosh. My entire tagline for my business is that I help people build a life that feels as good as it looks, because I think that's everyone's challenge, right? And it was mine too, right? Like I had this life that almost everyone would have traded me for, and I also was willing to trade it. I was like, if there's some joy out there, y'all can have all this money, all of these amazing things that are on paper. And so I think really like the advice that I have is that is the framework that I've developed. So this framework that I've developed is based, and I tell people you can filter absolutely any problem or any goal that you have through the lens of this framework. And when you do that, either with my support or without, you are going to be able to shift, exactly how you experience your life. And so the B is about beliefs. We've talked extensively about beliefs. The A is about alignment, right? And so from this place of alignment is like this idea of like, I have faith that this is going to happen. Everything you're seeking in the world, you're seeking it because fundamentally you believe that it'll make you happy. You believe that you'll be in these high vibration emotions. You may not think that, right? But if I kept asking you questions, but why do you want it? Why do you want it? Why do you want it? That's where you always land. Like, oh, I believe that this thing in life will make us happy. But the problem is we're oftentimes circling around these emotions of anger, shame, fear, worry, anxiety, trying to get there. So then it becomes like pushing a boulder up a mountain. You might get it to the top of the mountain, but your life is going to feel really bad. And so I tell people we have to reverse these things. We have to know that doing the work to be happy in advance is how we shorten the journey to achieving what we want. You, however, may achieve what you want, and your listeners are going to know this intimately. Achieve what you want and then be like, but where's the happiness that I thought was going to come from this? Because it doesn't work in that way, right? Joyful people, though, attract all the things. They're magnetic for the life that they're seeking. It is impossible to live in this high vibration state and not align with what you're seeking in this lifetime. But it's very possible to get the job, to build the business, to get the husband, to get the house, to get the car, to have the kids, and be like, well, this life really isn't what I thought it would be, right? So we have to like shift that. And that's what the alignment is about. And then the S is the self-awareness. Like, when are you actually off track? Like, you think that you have these strong beliefs, you think that you're in alignment, but I'll tell you, if you show me your life, I'll show you what you're actually thinking and believing and what you're in alignment with, because our lives are just a reflection of internally what we believe we deserve, what we believe that we're worthy of, right? And so if you don't have what you want, you have to change, and you have to have the self-awareness to think it's me, because you could sit in this chair and think that everything external to you has to change, and that's a tricky proposition because most people can't change for themselves. So hoping that they change for you would be really, really, really tricky. It could take a long time, right?
Mhm.
So we want to have the self-awareness about like, what shifts do I need to make? Because I know I'm capable of that because I'm already a high achieving person. So what shifts can I make in order to be in better alignment, in order to have stronger beliefs? And then the E really speaks to what you were saying, right? Like if the life doesn't feel good, it's probably because we haven't developed this rich emotional resilience, right? So all of us in our lifetime have things that are either stressful and or traumatic that have happened to us. And the work in this lifetime is to actually disentangle ourselves from the dense energy of those events. And we want to actually more so hold on to the wisdom, because everything that happens to us happens for us. So we hold on to the wisdom of those events, and that allows us to build this great big beautiful life. But we've got to actually like release the hate, anger, whatever other emotions are attached to those happenings. And when we do those four things, and we can, like I said, take every problem or every goal that we have and wash it through that lens, then we're going to build a life that feels as good as it looks.
I love that. And thank you so much for just giving us some insight on that. And I remember I had a moment. This is when I started my career in Atlanta. And this is when I graduated from grad school. I got the big accounting job. I got the degree. I got all these things. I have my own apartment. It's big. It's 2-bedroom. It has a sunroom. It has all this stuff. I remember looking out the window and I was just like, it doesn't feel good. Like on paper, like I've accomplished these things that I'm supposed to accomplish as a young individual, and it just didn't feel good. And I was like, that was my first life moment when I was just like, oh, there's something wrong with this. And that's when I first came to the conclusion that I was like, okay, I am more invested in having a life that feels good, that looks good to other people, because other people aren't living this experience or this life with me. I need for it to feel good and not just look good on paper. Right.
And that's such a beautiful commitment to make to yourself. I applaud you for making. So many of us take a very long time to get to that point. So I love that, like as a young person with your master's degree, you were like, you know what, I'm not going to do this. And that's so
Yeah, and
beautiful.
it was so interesting, Brandi, because when I started working for the accounting firm, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make partner and I'm gonna make this amount of money and I'm just gonna do all of that. And my dad even brought that up the other day. I have like Caribbean parents, so to them, you have a traditional career and this is the path. And to this day, they still, I thought she was gonna try and make partner and this and that, which is fine, right? Which is fine, but I learned early on in that experience, I was just like, it's not what's the point of having all the success if I'm like drowning in the middle of it? If I'm like, I'm gonna have to go and get all this therapy for it, or I'm gonna have to go and do it. I was like, it wasn't worth it to me. And I was like, okay, what can I do? How can I create a life that has balance? Because I'm working like 70 hours a week. Like, this is just not sustainable for me. So I made that decision early on. I was like, well, it needs to be something I can sustain and it makes me happy, or I'm just gonna just not be here. And I was just like, I just, that wasn't just gonna be an option for me. So I learned very quickly that there's not enough money in the world, not enough prestige in the world, not enough whatever in the world to cause me to do certain things. Like it's not enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and both things can be true. There can be an amount of money that you want to make that you can absolutely make without selling your soul.
Yes, I truly 100,000% believe that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And speaking of corporate background, what inspired your transition from corporate leadership into the world of like coaching and what you do now? Like, what did you have a moment? Was there a breakthrough? Was there a pivotal time that was like, okay, I'm going to do this now?
Yeah. I mean, I actually loved the most about my corporate career the coaching, right? Like I love like helping people figure out how to navigate their own careers, like helping members of my team like think about how to solve problems that they were facing. around the job. So that's the part that I always loved. I was the head of an 800 person employee resource group at Medtronic, and I led female employee resource group. So I'd done a lot of like coaching and mentoring my entire career, but I didn't actually stop working with the idea that I was going to move into coaching and speaking. I just stopped working to stop working because it was so incredibly taxing, and it just was not what I wanted to do. Like what we were talking about, I was like, I'm really, really, really excellent at this job, and I do not love it at all. And that was like a really tricky place to be in, having given so much time. I've since gotten to the place of like knowing that I got so many gifts from that work, and that in those gifts I'm able to use. It helps me connect with my clients more. There's skills that I honed in that time. But in that moment, I was like, what is all this for? Right. And I was fortunate to be in a place where I'd, helped, grow companies as an executive. And so I'd done pretty well, and I didn't have to work. So I just stopped. And then after a few years, people started coming to me because I was really just working on myself. I'm like, what does it take to like live a life of joy? And like no one had taught me that. I had young Black parents. They had never even really centered on joy. They were like, girl, you're going to go to college, then you're going to go to grad school, and then you're going to make a lot of money, and good luck and God bless. Like that was like it. And those aren't terrible
My
things.
parents too.
Yeah, right. Like, and I think our parents are doing the best they can. Those aren't bad things to teach your kid if you're a young parent, having kids in Detroit and you want her to have a better life. Those are great things to offer.
Mm-hmm.
But I just got into a place where I really was working with and on myself, and then people started coming to me, and that's how my coaching practice began. And that's how I like came to just really have a framework. And I feel like, I work with highly accomplished professionals and humans, and I think that they do really well with like frameworks and, just like processes. And so that's why I developed BASE, because it really resonates with people. They're like, oh, a framework. I'm good at frameworks. Tell me more, So it just like really was like meeting people where they were at.
I love that. It's so, in the coaching world, everyone have these frameworks, right? And I always wonder, how did people go about developing their specific frameworks? So it's always interesting to see how people approach that, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, mine came to me. I felt like through just prayer and guidance. Like I really feel like I just downloaded it. Honestly, I wasn't setting out to be like, I need a framework, but I was like, well, how do I explain what I do? And just like through prayer. And then I was like, oh, that's it. And it just like popped into me. And then I was like, oh, and then it started resonating with people. And I'm like, this makes a lot of sense.
yes.
Yeah.
I love divine downloads is what I call it. I love when those happen, because it's like the concept that you have to think through and solve anything, and sometimes you can be gifted a solution. You don't have to always go through this rigorous process to find an answer. And I feel like there's an aspect of us that values or has the belief that everything has to be through some kind of hardship or some sacrifice or some kind of, you can just be gifted something. You can just get an answer, girl. You don't have to always have to like go through something.
I mean, and also like, and some people struggle with gifted. So the one other thing I tell my client is like, think of all that you put out into the universe that hasn't come back to you, and just think that this is reciprocity. Like you don't, like you think you haven't done anything because you're so busy exchanging time for money or exchanging this for that. And when you realize like the abundance of the universe doesn't work that way, right? Like, so there'll be some places where you're the giver, and especially for women and people of color, I don't think we oftentimes like really think of ourselves as deserving of being the receiver.
Right. Much agreed. So I think one of the focuses and one of the things we discussed about earlier is about being in alignment, right? And living a life that feels good, creating a life that feels good. What are the signs that someone is out of alignment with their wealth purpose?
Oh, that's a good one. I think we know that we're out of alignment when we don't feel connected to ourselves, right? So we should always have kind of, like I said, this intuitive guidance, this intuitive knowing. And when we feel like really disconnected from that, when we feel out of alignment, then we know like, oh, there's work to do. I mean, and that I think probably before you get there you'll realize you're out of alignment because you just aren't making as much money as you want to make. Right,
Mhm.
like it's so simple. I tell people, like, if you have a goal, a dream, an aspiration, and you feel really really far away from it, then there is something in you that isn't on the right track, right? Like that's our first step, right? Because life actually, to your point earlier, I tell people life gets to be easy. It actually does. Like, I know people don't believe it, but it gets to be easy. Like, you should be at a place where it's like things come to you, you like take action, you do, but it doesn't have to always feel like a heavy lift. And then you see the fruits of your creation. If you always feel like you're pushing and driving and fighting and there's friction, like you're not on track, even if you're getting the outcome you think you want, because life isn't meant to be like that. Like, God just did not put us on this planet to have these really hard, challenging lives. And it's a misnomer that we as a society have unfortunately perpetuated, right? And there is this beautiful ability just to know that, like, oh, I don't need to be in this place of hardship and fighting for every single thing.
Hmm. And I think that is such a nice thing to place to be in. Like, and even when I ever set out to like try to accomplish something like this podcast or any other thing, like I think in the beginning you feel like, oh my God, it's gonna be so much work, it's gonna be so hard, it's gonna be so hard. And once you actually get to doing it, you realize, oh, it wasn't as bad or as hard as I thought it was, or you didn't necessarily have the whole plan. And I think, especially working with like certain groups of women, ambitious women, we tend to have that perfectionist syndrome that stops you before you even like start
Yeah.
anything. Because but I saw a lovely quote that said, just create it first and then make it good later. Like just
Yeah.
get started, and
Yeah.
you can just make it like perfect and shiny later, and you'll actually experience more progress.
Yeah.
So my last question for this time what we have together is, I want you to address like the listener right now. And especially if a listener is stuck or feeling stagnant in life financially, emotionally, or energetically, like what's the very first step they should take, in your opinion?
Yeah, I love that question. I think when we're feeling stuck, we actually want to feel into like what is it that is causing us to be stuck, because there's something like perhaps we're stuck because we don't feel safe moving forward, right? Perhaps we're stuck because we are actually doing work that isn't our our purpose, that isn't aligned with who we are meant to be in this lifetime. Perhaps we're stuck because we don't lean into or ask our community for support, right? So there's a multitude of reasons why people are stuck. And the first step is really to ask yourself why. And this sounds silly, but you can do it multiple ways. You can just like say like, okay, Brandi, like right now you're really feeling stuck. Like, what is making you feel stuck? And like stick with the first answer that comes to your mind. Like, and the answer could be like, oh, um, it could be about someone's dog. And like you really want to explore that, because I think sometimes we oftentimes dismiss the answer and think that we have it all figured out. And I usually tell my clients, if you come to me with a very logical answer, then that's not it. Because like the most logical answer, you've already explored that. Like there is something underlying, there's something underneath that's like guiding you off track. And that there's like magic in identifying that. If you don't feel comfortable like asking yourself and answering, like some people don't like talking to themselves, it makes them feel weird. You can also use like a journal and you can write, okay, this morning I'm just going to write everything about why I'm feeling stuck. And just you want to do a download. Again, though, you have to go with the very first thing that comes to your mind. It could be like, oh, I feel like I have like a lot of commitment to my son, or I have a lot of commitments to my husband, and I'm like prioritizing them over me. But you have to be willing to have those like really deep, raw, emotional conversations with yourself about what is causing me to be in this place. Because until you uncover the root, I could give you a lot of steps to take and they won't move you forward, because that root cause is going to keep pulling you back. And so I tell people the work that I do is root cause work. Like, I'm not going to come in and just tell you to, like, you know, be more productive and teach you how to be productive, or tell you, because we have these underlying patterns that are repeating in our lives, and some are very supportive. I tell people all the time, like, some people have lives it's like the better it gets, the better it gets, right? And we see people, like, regardless of how you feel about them, we see the people in our country who make billions and billions of dollars, they just keep making more because it's a pattern in their life, and that pattern is unstoppable, right? And we all have those types of patterns in our lives, maybe not at that scale, but then we also have these patterns where the worse it gets, the worse it gets. And that's because life is trying to get your attention and you're not listening. And so you're stuck because you're not listening. And so you have to get the message to deeply understand why you're stuck. And then you want to build around a process to move yourself out of that. And it usually goes to the E part, right? Like that emotional resilience. You're stuck because something is pulling you back to your past and not letting you move into your future.
I just feel like we all just got a little therapy session. It's a little bit like, I just felt like, remember that book that was out, Chicken Soup for the Soul? Remember that book?
My dad used to love that book, and I never read it, but he owned a big business, and he would give everyone who started at his company that book. And maybe that's why I never read it.
I
Is it so
love
good?
that book. I need to see if I can find some old copies or whatever. I just felt like it really lived up to the title, where you would read it and you felt like, oh, you just got like a healing or something from it.
I love
But
that.
thank you so much for that. So, Brandi, you have been lovely sharing all these gems like back to back. I feel like we kind of know each other now. Where can, if people are interested in connecting with you, where can they find you? Do you have anything coming out? How can you help people who are looking for what Brandi has to offer?
I love that. My website, my Instagram, my LinkedIn, my YouTube, everything is brandibhudson.com, which you guys will see here. So it's Brandi with an I, B Hudson. And then there's two things that I, give to the world for free. One is every single Tuesday, I publish a Substack, and it's also Brandi B Hudson. And then every other Thursday, I do a Q&A podcast. So if you ever have any questions you want me to answer about your life, or any insights that you need, you can send me questions at Brandi@highbrandi.com. And so that's that. But you can also email me about any other things that pop up in your life. So that's where people can find me.
All right. See, brandibhudson.com or at Brandi B Hudson. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, ladies. I hope you all catch those gems now. Okay. Do not sleep on the information. Okay. Practice gratitude, be in alignment. Make sure we're being very intentional with what we're believing out here in these streets, and manifest your best goddess life. I want to thank our lovely, lovely host, Brandi, for joining us. So much fun. And ladies, I will see you in the next episode.